Maxx Crosby for a second and a fourth-round pick to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers, guys, by the way, haven't had Emeka Egbuka, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin together. Championship offense. We know how great Maxx Crosby is. He's only 28 years old. And again, we know the Raiders are not going anywhere this year, guys. So they can rebuild. Two good picks. And if you're the Bucs, let's go for it right now.
What do you think about this one, Jay?
Finally, I got you, Mike T. I love this one. If you're trading for defensive players that can change the entire game, we're seeing highlights from this Bears game. Maxx Crosby was all over the field. Get him out of Las Vegas and get him on a team that can win some games. I like it, Mike T.
I guess my only question on this is there was a time when Myles Garrett was getting traded last offseason, and we were talking about multiple firsts and all that kind of stuff. Maxx Crosby would only get you a second and a fourth?
Well, the durability is a little bit of an issue. So if I'm the Raiders, I'm trying to get. Well, yeah. But if I'm the Buccaneers, I would pay the premium. And if I'm the Raiders, it's better than nothing.
I like this one.
Trader Mike making deals. You finally got Harry on your side.
All right, Cowboys Nation, welcome back to Dallas Insider, the place where the star isn't just a logo, it's a heartbeat. Settle in, because today we're talking about the kind of move that doesn't just tweak a depth chart or patch a hole for a few weeks. We're talking about the one player who could flip the power balance of the entire NFC in 2025. The one defender whose motor, mentality, and production could take this Dallas defense from searching to suffocating. Yes, we're talking about Maxx Crosby and why the Dallas Cowboys need to be in the thick of any serious conversation about his future. Let's set the scene. Around the league, phones are buzzing. The trade market has life, and the Raiders' phone is one of the busiest. Multiple outlets have reported that teams are calling Las Vegas to ask about Maxx Crosby. The public stance out of Vegas isn't "we're shopping him," but it isn't "we're hanging up" either. That crack in the door is all a real contender needs. And if there's a contender with the combination of urgency, capital, and a glaring need where Crosby thrives most, it's the Dallas Cowboys. Now, before we dive into what Crosby would become in Dallas, let's talk about who he already is. This isn't a streaky sack artist who disappears for quarters at a time and pops once a month. This is a three-down defensive end who lives on the field, who sets an edge like a brick wall and still knifes into the backfield as if he launched out of a sprinter set. He wins with length, leverage, technique, and a relentless engine that forces coordinators to rewrite protection plans on Wednesday and rip them up again on Friday. The Raiders paid him like that kind of cornerstone this spring. 3 years, $106.5 million, and for good reason. That deal wasn't ceremonial. It was a billboard that said he's as valuable as it gets for a non-quarterback. So why even talk trade? Why would a team extend a star in March and still pick up the phone in October? Because roster math is brutal and windows don't align neatly. Vegas is fighting uphill in the AFC West, and premium draft capital can tempt even the most dug-in front office, especially when the asset in question is one of the few players who can recoup multiple meaningful picks. Add in the mileage from Crosby's punishing snap counts, the simple truth that he plays more downs than almost any edge in the league, and some decision makers will quietly ask themselves whether this is the moment to collect maximum value. On the other end of the line, teams that believe they're one foundational defender away from changing their season. That's not theory. There's reported interest, and it's picking up. Where does Dallas sit in that ecosystem? Right at the pivot point. Brian Schottenheimer's offense is humming, and Dak Prescott has this unit in command and control mode. When they need tempo, they find it. When they need balance, they call it. When they need a dagger, they hit it. But even the most efficient offense can't bail water forever if the hull keeps springing leaks, and that's been the reality on defense. Measurably, the Cowboys have lagged in overall defensive efficiency. EPA per play tells the story, and it's not a flattering one right now. You can argue methodology, you can argue opponent context, but you can't argue the trend line. If Dallas wants to be taken seriously in January, the defense has to climb, fast. That's where Crosby changes the math. Not a sugar rush, not a one-package third-and-long specialist. A four-quarters tone setter who lets defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus simplify, not complicate. With Crosby, you can win with four. You can line up and dictate. You can stop living on the razor's edge of designer blitzes that steal something on one snap and expose something on the next. With Crosby sealing the edge and collapsing pockets from base looks, the Cowboys can get back to the version of themselves that makes opponents impatient, makes quarterbacks twitchy, and makes offensive tackles pray for help that isn't coming. Now picture the front if the Joneses push the button. Kenny Clark commanding attention on the interior, Osa Odighizuwa exploding off gaps with that first step quickness, and James Houston, yes, the same underrated spark who seized his opportunity this fall, racing in from the opposite edge. Houston has been one of the breakout stories on this defense. He's producing on a snap-efficient basis and now leads the team in sacks. That's not wish casting, that's the board. He's cleared to go again this week and quietly stacking a season that's getting league-wide notice. Pair that emergent juice with Crosby's baseline rendement. You don't just add pressure, you normalize it. You don't chase negative plays, you live in them. There's also a locker room layer here that matters. Every team says standard, but a few players embody it. Crosby is one of those few. He plays through pain, through double teams, through game plans designed to erase him, and he still finds the ball. That carries weight with veterans. It accelerates the growth curve for young linemen. It gives Eberflus permission to call a quieter game and still get a louder result. It's not an accident that coaches around the league use Crosby as a cut-up teaching tape. Watch the hands, watch the hustle, watch the second effort turn into the splash. Dallas has leaders. Adding another who leads by force of habit is culture fuel. But what's the cost? That's the question that always arrives right after the highlight reel plays in your head. The market is fluid, and the Raiders hold cards after the extension. Different insiders will float different packages. There are arguments about durability premiums and snap wear, and there are rebuttals about production that hasn't blinked despite those snaps. What's steady is the profile. Elite edge production, prime years, contract control. Players like that do not move for lottery ticket scraps. If you're serious, you pay real draft capital and you don't look back, because you're buying certainty at a position where certainty is almost non-existent. And make no mistake, after that March extension, the price tag reflects his tier. Why not just stick with the internal plan? The arrow was up against the Jets. Absolutely true. The Dallas front finally flashed cohesion and bite. But even inside that step forward, the data says what the tape does. The defense needs a pillar, not a cameo. The best part about acquiring Crosby is how it supercharges what's already working. Kenny Clark's power gets cleaner because sliding protections toward Crosby leaves more one-on-ones inside. Houston's angles get shorter because the quarterback's depth is compromised sooner. The back seven gets to drive on throws that come a beat earlier and float a hair higher because the pocket isn't a pocket, it's a shrinking room. That's complementary football on defense, and it's why the league's most stable units share the same DNA, a front that wins without gimmicks. Let's add a dose of practical reality in Dallas's direction. The front office doesn't need to squint to find urgency. Every week that the offense carries the load while the defense searches is a week where the margin for error in December gets thinner. And yet the moment is tailor-made. The offense remains one of the league's most productive groups. The schedule has a sequence where wins can stack, and the division race is the kind that punishes whoever blinks first. You take a big swing now, not because it's flashy, but because it's efficient. You convert a volatile variable, pressure package, mix and match, into a stable constant, Crosby's snap-over-snap impact. That's the kind of portfolio rebalance contenders make in October to collect dividends in January. If you're still on the fence, zoom in on the contrasts that actually matter. Since March, Crosby's market value has been set in neon. The Raiders paid him like a franchise pillar. When teams still call on a player like that, it's not a rumor mill fishing expedition, it's a recognition of how rare it is to find a force of nature who also never needs to come off the field. At the same time, the Cowboys' defensive efficiency has lived near the bottom of the board. No one inside the Star needs a statistician to say it out loud, but the numbers do anyway. Those two truths point to the same solution. And because this is Dallas Insider, let's bring receipts about the guys already here. James Houston's production isn't a feel-good cameo. He leads the team in sacks, he's cleared for the Panthers, and the beat writers who have watched every rep are calling for more deployment, not less. Osa Odighizuwa keeps winning on quickness, and Kenny Clark, acquired as part of the broader restructuring of this front, anchors the A-gaps with that grown man power that shows up in run-stop metrics as well as the broadcast. Even local analysts are pointing out the interior synergy and how it travels. Add Crosby to that mix, and you're not patching the edge, you're dictating the edge. There's another angle that makes this compelling beyond the X's and O's: identity. Since the offseason, Dallas made hard, headline-grabbing choices. Micah Parsons is no longer here, full stop. That meant the pass rush aura left with him, at least until someone rebuilt it. For a month, the defense tried to define itself by committee. Now there's a chance to reshape it around a different kind of star, not a hybrid chess piece, but a three-down sledgehammer. You don't replace Parsons' specific profile, you replace the missing stability with a different kind of dominance. Crosby gives you that. He doesn't flip a game with one rush and vanish, he squeezes a game, snap by snap, until offenses feel like they're playing inside a vice. From the top of the building down to the last locker, a move like this sends a signal. It tells the veterans the front office believes this is a real window. It tells the young core that the standard is production and strain, not potential and hope. It tells the rest of the NFC that Dallas isn't here to survive shootouts, they're here to end them in the third quarter. Think about this offense under Schottenheimer when it's playing on short fields, when the script doesn't have to chase, when closing time means leaning on a lead instead of chasing one. That's how championship teams look in the guts of winter. So what does it take? In today's market, picks, plural, and probably a premium headliner among them. And if you're Dallas, you accept that reality because the return is a rare thing. Certainty at a premium position during a live title window under a contract you already understand to the dollar. That extension wasn't just ESPN graphics fodder, it